Chapter 6063. Although Nanako had just gained enlightenment not long ago, she had already realized a very critical problem. That is, the amount of spiritual energy available to her was pitifully small. And there were almost no external channels for obtaining spiritual energy. For today's ascetics, obtaining spiritual energy is the biggest difficulty. There is no spiritual energy in the world. So the only external channels for obtaining it are pills, spiritual stones, or formations. If a person has a complete cultivation of the mind method, he can generate spiritual energy in the body by running the mind method. But for people like Charlie and Nanako who do not have the mind method, this road of self-sufficiency is not feasible. Therefore, the small amount of spiritual energy generated in Nanako's body when she attained enlightenment was basically exhausted after trying the spiritual energy perception. Charlie is slightly better than Nanako. The spiritual stones he got by chance in the early days provided him with a lot of spiritual energy. Later, relying on the cultivation pill, he could barely make up for the gap in spiritual energy. Although Charlie couldn't help Nanako improve her cultivation, fortunately, he could provide Nanako with pill help. Nanako naturally knew that Charlie's elixir must be very precious. Seeing that Charlie gave him one without hesitation, she subconsciously wanted to decline it politely. But she suddenly thought of another question. If she wanted to improve her strength and worry more about Charlie, she must accept the pill given by him. Otherwise, why should she talk about walking with him? Thinking of this, she looked at Charlie and said with great sincerity, "Charlie, I know nothing about Taoism. But my determination to practice with Charlie and go on together can be learned from the sun and the moon. If you do not dislike it, I will work hard to take care of you in the future." Charlie was moved, nodded slightly, and said with a smile, "You are my only Taoist friend. I hope you can improve your cultivation as soon as possible and give me a helping hand in the future." After saying that, Charlie handed the elixir to her. Nanako reached out and took the elixir, and then asked Charlie, "Mr. Charlie, should I eat it all at once, or take it in several doses?" Charlie patted his forehead. "I almost forgot that you have just realized this. The spiritual energy in this pill is not only pure but also very abundant. It is not suitable to take the whole pill. It is better to divide it into 10 parts and then take one of them to give it a try." Nanako nodded lightly and divided the pill into almost 10 parts. Equal parts, then picked up one of them and said to Charlie, "Let me take one first and give it a try." Charlie encouraged, "As long as I am here, you can take it with confidence." Nanako smiled sweetly and immediately put that portion of the elixir into her mouth. The moment it entered the mouth, the elixir turned into a powerful and surging spiritual energy, pouring directly into Nanako's sea of consciousness. The originally calm sea of consciousness seemed to have stirred up a storm in an instant, followed by a turbulent wave. And Nanako also felt that the energy available for calling in her sea of consciousness became much stronger in an instant. The sensory abilities that had been greatly improved after enlightenment suddenly jumped to a new level. And the spiritual energy in her body also changed. It was extremely abundant and with just a slight movement of consciousness, the spiritual energy immediately separated from the body. And everything in the entire office seemed to be under his control from God's perspective. Immediately afterward, this control continued to spread to the surroundings. In a moment, 7 or 8 surrounding rooms also entered the range of perception. Charlie could feel the spiritual energy that Nanako was releasing. Looking at herself, the spiritual energy in her body was already very full. And she couldn't continue to take the pill even if she thought about it. After a moment, she withdrew the spiritual energy she used for perception, raised her head and said to Charlie, "I could only release very little spiritual energy before, but it was difficult for me to control the movement of the spiritual energy. But the spiritual energy I released just now, I can already move according to my own thoughts. Although the movement is still a bit sluggish, this feeling is really amazing." Charlie nodded and said, "The control of spiritual energy is very important. In the future, using spiritual energy to drive spells or formations will all rely on the control of spiritual energy with thoughts. You can practice more. When you become more proficient, I will teach you how to use spiritual energy to drive the formation. At that time, I will give you a magic weapon that can be used to attack. Nanako said seriously, nodding and firmly. Don't worry, I will go all out and never let you down. Charlie smiled knowingly and then said, Nanako, since you have realized the truth now, there is no need to stay here to continue. Now that you are practicing martial arts, it is better to concentrate on practicing the control of spiritual energy.